Welcome to East Tennessee Pinball. Back on the Earthshaker here, and just going through trying to make sure everything's working on this game. Played a couple games and I noticed a couple things. The drop targets weren't resetting, and I went ahead and put it in test mode, and the drop targets are not registering. It looks like the first one is, I think it's registering some of the time. The other two are not. And one time when I was playing this, the ball got stuck back here and didn't kick up, and I think I see what the problem is. That plunger, like right now, it's stuck up. I'm not in a game, that's supposed to fall down there. I think basically when it's up, the ball hits it and doesn't, it just sits here and doesn't fall down to actually so it can engage the switch, because that plunger is just stuck up. So I think it's probably just dirty and needs to be cleaned. So I'll probably take that apart and clean it. Check out the switches and or clean these drop targets. The Williams drop targets are kind of notoriously crappy. I believe all the rest of the switches are working. So that's what, in this left flipper, it works, but it's a little weak. It's hard to make this shot and make it all the way up there. You can do it, but it's just a little bit weak. I'm gonna see what's up with that, and we'll go from there. All right, so I got the game flipped up. Here's that kicker. That plunger seems completely free from here, but I guess I'll go ahead and take this thing off, put a new sleeve in there, clean out the plunger, and that will probably take care of that. That'll be pretty easy. This is a drop target assembly, so it's an opto-driven assembly. I'm gonna have to take this board off, and hopefully it's a cold solder joint. So I'll check it. I'll pull this board out, take it over to the bench, and we'll see it back on the bench. So first I'm gonna disassemble this. I'm gonna have to take the whole thing off the screws to take that piece off there on the back side. I can't really get to it, so I'm just gonna pull this whole thing off and get to it there. Okay, so I got those 3 screws there. They're my thumb. I pull this thing off, and now I can get to those 2 screws there, and I'll be able to get this whole assembly off there and swap out that coil sleeve right there, my thumb, and we'll go. Actually, after looking at this a little bit further, it's not the sleeve that's causing the problem. It's this piece here slides, but that pin is kind of pushing out on one side, and it's not centered. So it's got a lot of slop because it's not engaging on this side here. Might be hard to see, but there's a slot there. That pin is not protruding through on this side, and it's allowing it to stick up instead of sliding up and down. And actually that's a problem, so I need to get that pin back in. It's gonna be a little bit difficult to do because this is a plastic piece here. Need to beat that pin in without breaking that plastic sleeve, so that may be present some challenges. So I think I'll probably desolder this whole thing and take it over to the vise where I can get some better tools on it. Okay, I've got this on the bench. Now you can see it a little bit better. I was unscrewing this thinking I could take this out, but I can't. It's basically still captive because there's this piece here. So let me show you. So there's that pin there. See, this piece here has travel also. That pin, you see, it's not centered. It's basically just kind of dangling there. So this side here, it can overrun that pin and it's getting stuck. So I'm gonna go ahead and start. I'm gonna beat that pin out, take this all apart, replace the sleeve, put this in the parts washer, and then put the pin back in with the new sleeve, and it's gonna work. This thing surely hasn't been apart since it was manufactured. So I guess I'll start by beating it out and hopefully not break this piece. If I do, that'll be a trip to Marco's probably. Now y'all wish me luck here, because this is going to be, wow, that's my smallest one I've got here at the shop, and that's too big, so that's not going to work. Let's see what else I've got. Well, I didn't have a small enough punch, so I had this, it's basically, it was a sharp tool. I ground off the end of it flat. This is really not made for the rigor of this. I'm gonna see what I can see if this will hold up for a few hits. Wow. It came out super easy. It was just barely in there. So I'll have to get it back too, but so now we can get all this apart. And so all this, or the whole thing, is going in the parts washer. All this. And well, that's trash. This will go in the parts washer. 5 minutes, it'll be clean. Drop the pin. Fine. All right, we'll take it over the bench and put it back together. So we're gonna need a new coil sleeve. I'll go in here and grab one. That looks like a fit. Looks like a better fit. That's a perfect fit right there. Throw y'all on the stand real quick. Now we got the tricky part of pushing this pin back in. In the field of view, can y'all see? I think so. There you go. That's about as far as it was in when I started, right there. There we go. This is going to be hard to do without busting it. Oh, yeah, it's all nice and centered up in there. I don't know if you can see that. You just bring the camera over to it. See, the pin's just barely sticking out on both sides, and it's nice and clean. So I'll put those 2 screws back in there, solder this thing back up, and we'll be good to go. Okay, got that kicker all reassembled, put back together. I'm thinking that'll be fine. Next step, I'm gonna take this drop target assembly apart. Start by disconnected in here, and yeah, I'm gonna take all these screws off and pull it off the back of the playfield. Okay, I took all the screws off from this bracket here, disconnected it from the playfield. I'm gonna take that nut and that nut off, and then I should be able to slide this thing back and out and get the coil off here, so this whole thing will be free from the playfield, and take it over the bench. All right, with those nuts free, I ought to be able to just slide this thing back and off of here. Had both hands, I probably could anyway. Maybe not. I may need more. No, I can't. I have to take these nuts off here too. All right. All right, I got it apart now. Take it over to the bench and see what it's looking like. I'm gonna go grab the stand for y'all. All right, so the first thing I notice is somebody's been working on this board before. Looks like that opto's been replaced and that one's been replaced. That's the two that are I believe this one worked occasionally and these two never worked. So I think those are the two that did not work. I can't really see cold solder joints here. So first thing I'm gonna do, so it could be cold solder joints and these don't look particularly bad. Could be the easy solutions are cold solder joints, or just the opto itself inside of there is just covered with soot and it just needs to be cleaned with a Q-tip and some alcohol. Unfortunately, it's kind of a pain to get it dug out so you can do that. These rubber bushings on here, they get fragile and want to fall apart, so you got to be kind of careful with them or they will disintegrate on you. Oh yeah. This one's definitely had some work. That one's a little crooked. So first thing I'm going to try is I'm going to resolder all these, and I'm going to get a Q-tip and some alcohol and clean those. Yeah, they're pretty dirty in there. It could be just dirt. See, that one just fell out. I have to put that back. Yeah, you can see all the soot flying off this thing. It's nasty. Soldering iron heat up and get a Q-tip and oh sorry, I'm knocking y'all around. Go get a Q-tip, clean this thing up. See that one there? Oh, that's the case is loose. The case is moving up and down. There's all the soot I got off that. And that was after it had been flushed pretty heavily with alcohol. It wasn't near as dirty. Alright, I'll just dry a little bit and then I will pat it down a little, speed it up, and then I'll resolder the optos, maybe the header pins, and I'll plug it in and I'll just get a piece of paper and put it in front of the optos and see if they're registering before I put the whole thing together. It could be these optos are bad. Could be several different things. We'll try the simple stuff first. These header pins don't actually look bad, but just as a preventative measure, I got this thing out, I'm just gonna reflow them real quick. And actually, off camera, that's basically residue from the alcohol. I went ahead and scrubbed these down with the alcohol and a toothbrush. They were a little dirty. I didn't want to incorporate all that muck into the solder joints. I'm going to clean these off first. I'm going to suck them off. They're not looking very shiny. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Just pull off two of them as well. Gotta add a little bit of solder before I can suck it off. So I'm just pulling off two of these at a time so the thing doesn't fall out. The opto doesn't fall out. And resolder, and then I'll do the other two. I'm actually not super hopeful that this resoldering is going to do a whole lot, because it actually didn't look too awful bad. I might have fixed it by just wiping all the soot off of there. Which really could have been done without pulling the board. But all right. Soft the flux a little bit. That will dry shortly, and then we'll throw it back in. And I'll just get a piece of paper and block these optos and see if they're registering. So we'll do that, see if it's working before we button everything back up. All right, so I got the switch assembly opto board down there and plugged in, so I'm going to put it into the switch test. So it's registering all three of them, so I'm going to, one at a time, I'm going to reach down here and block them with a business card and see if they turn off. So I'm going to do, that's on the side, I don't know if it's left or right. Let's see if we got something. Center right, so that must be the left one. So now I'm going to hit the center one, so it should extinguish. So I got left and right, that's good. And I'm going to do the other one, so now we got the left and center. So seems to be working, so that's cool. Not exactly sure what I did to fix it. It was either cleaning the dirt off of it, or refilling the solder on the optos, or refilling the solder on the header pins. Probably one of those three things. Anyway, so I'm gonna button this, put this reassemble this all and put it back together, and then we'll move over to that left flipper, upper flipper. You know, while I've got this part, I might as well throw this in the parts cleaner for 30 seconds and also put a new sleeve in there. So I'm gonna do that too. All right, I got the game going here. I'm gonna press the buttons here. You can kind of hear it. Yep, there we go. I'm gonna shoot one of these back in here. And you saw the plunger came back down, so that's good. Those two things are good. Onto the left, this left flipper is just, I mean, horrible. Oh, you see it? You can kind of see it coming down slowly. It's got some mechanical friction in there. See how this one's snappy? Comes down quick. This one, if you see it, it's kind of falling slowly. So it's probably got a little bit of friction. Maybe it's too tight or something. That's a clue. Okay, so here's that flipper. The first thing I was thinking was if these things get bolted on up too tight, so where basically this thing is, you basically need, this seat needs to, see how that's moving back and forth slightly? You need that. If it's bolted up to where it's squeezed up against that bushing, then you've got that friction there, and that will cause the symptoms we just saw. I don't think that's not the case here. But the other thing is, as this goes in, it needs to be aligned. If it's in a little bit too far, even if it's still got a little bit of play, this one it's kind of bent like this. I'm exaggerating with my finger. So when it gets in, it's kind of cattywampus, and the further it gets in, the more exaggerated that gets. So when it's out, let's say it's in a millimeter. But out here, that angle's real small. But as it gets close, that millimeter gets exaggerated. That angle gets really tight, and it kind of cramps up. I think that's what's going on. The other thing, just looking at it, is there's not really much play in the link, but in the bushing, when I say the bushing, that white piece in the back there, that the flipper shaft goes through, see how much that wiggles? So if I was looking on the top of the playfield, that flipper, maybe that's a better way to show you. It's going to be all wiggly up and down. So that bushing is a little bit, I don't think that's what's really, whoops. It's not so much going to make it shoot a little bit weaker, but more poor aim. But I think what's making it come back, like I can get occasionally, if I jam it in like crooked, it'll sometimes hang up. So basically the solution is, well, it needs new bushing, but the other thing is basically to unbolt this and slide this whole mechanism out just a smidge, like a millimeter. And because this thing is just not in alignment with the coil. And maybe probably go ahead and, while I take it apart, replace the coil sleeve. It may or may not need it, but if I'm taking it apart, I'm gonna put a new coil sleeve in it. Yeah, see that sticking? So if it's sticking coming out, you know there's friction going in also. You're just losing power. So, and that you really need that thing to kick, because it's a hard shot to make. So I'm going to do that real quick, and let's see if I get a bushing while I'm at it. All right, so I got this assembly taken apart. Unfortunately, the nut, you have to basically take this whole thing off, because there's nuts on the back of the bolts that hold those bushings on. It's kind of a pain, but whatever. Another thing to check for a weak flipper is this end of stroke switch here. These are common. If you're not making good contact there, you're not going to have a powerful punch with your solenoid. It looks like this one has actually been replaced with the new ones, and it's well adjusted and good to go. So I'm gonna dig around my parts bin and see if I believe I've got some of these. If not, I'll be calling Steve and getting one. Hold on. Well, I just looked, and I do not have this part in stock. Must have every other one, but you can see that wiggle there. Let me hold it. Get on something easier to focus on. That's quite a bit of wiggle, and it's just because this bushing is just wallered out. It's probably fair chance it's the original bushing. So I ordered a whole bunch of new bushings of this size, and I'll have them. But I'm going to stop the video here for now. Rest assured, this thing will be flipping good when I'm done. Anyway, so this one, I'm going to do a little, not really shopping this one. Going to just kind of a, what do you want to call it? A surface clean. Not going to tear it down. Just going to clean what I can get to without tearing it down. And this one will be good to go. Thanks for watching. Click like and subscribe. Adios.